You know, they say rock bottom usually has a basement, and let me tell you, I found the trapdoor to it on Christmas Eve inside a restaurant that charged $15 for a side of fries. My name is Marcus, and I've been a single dad for 6 years, ever since my wife Sarah passed, leaving me with a broken heart and a 1-year-old daughter named Chloe, who has her mother's eyes, and a stubborn streak a mile wide. For 6 years, I kept my head down, working mid-level accounting, raising my girl, and trying to convince myself that I was okay being alone, that I didn't need anyone else, until my sister practically dragged me out of the house for this blind date, swearing up and down that Tiffany was different, that she was the one. Well, let me paint the picture for you. Tiffany was beautiful, sure, in that glossy, high-maintenance way that makes you nervous to spill your water. But 10 minutes in, I knew it was a disaster, because every time I mentioned Chloe, Tiffany's eyes glazed over like I was reading the terms and conditions of a software update. I showed her a picture on my phone, just a cute snap of Chloe in her reindeer pajamas drawing a picture for Santa. And Tiffany looked at it, took a sip of her martini, and dropped the hammer. She stood up, smoothed out her dress, and said, loud enough for the tables nearby to hear, "Look, Marcus, you seem nice, but I'm looking for a partner. Not a ready-made family. I don't do baggage. And I certainly don't do other people's kids." She walked out, didn't even wait for the check, just left me sitting there with a half-eaten appetizer and that burning, prickly heat of humiliation creeping up my neck, feeling every pair of eyes in the room drilling into me, pitying the guy who just got dumped before the entrees arrived. I was reaching for my coat, just wanting to disappear into the cold Chicago night, when a voice cut through the clatter of silverware, clear and calm as a bell. "Excuse me, but are you busy for the next 40 years? I froze, turned around, and there she was sitting at the table right next to mine, a woman who looked like she owned the building, wearing a charcoal power suit that probably cost more than my car, dark hair pulled back severe and tight, eating alone with a book open next to her plate. Her name, I'd find out, was Elena Sterling, and she wasn't smiling. She wasn't joking. She was looking at me with this intense, calculating gaze that made me feel like a math problem she was trying to solve. "I'm sorry?" I stammered, thinking maybe she was talking to someone behind me. "I asked if you were busy," she repeated, closing her book, "because I just heard what that woman said to you, and frankly, her loss seems like a statistical error I could exploit. Can you be my husband?" My brain short-circuited. I mean, completely flatlined. Here I am, a black man in a fancy restaurant, already embarrassed. And now this wealthy stranger is proposing marriage before I've even finished my water? "Lady, I don't know what kind of game this is, but I'm not in the mood," I said, grabbing my scarf. "I need to get home to my daughter." "Wait," she said, and for the first time, her voice cracked, just a little, dropping that CEO mask. "Please, just sit for 5 minutes. I'm not crazy, I promise." Well, maybe a little desperate, but not dangerous. There was something in her eyes, loneliness, deep and hollow, the same kind I saw in the mirror every morning, so against every survival instinct I had. I sat down. She signaled the waiter for a bottle of wine, poured 2 glasses, and laid it out on the table like a business merger. "I'm 36 years old," she said. "I built a tech consultancy firm from my garage into a 9-figure empire. I have 3 homes, a driver, and a Rolodex full of senators. And I have absolutely no one to share it with." She took a breath. "My parents are old money, very traditional, and they have been parading eligible bachelors in front of me for a decade. Men who only see dollar signs when they look at me. Men who want to merge portfolios, not lives." "Okay," I said slowly. "So you're lonely. Join the club. But why ask a stranger to marry you?" She looked down at her hands, and that's when the steel dissolved. "Because I want a family, Marcus. I want it more than anything, but I can't have children medically. It's impossible, irreversible." She looked up, eyes shining. "I heard you talking about your daughter, about her drawing, about how you make her chocolate chip pancakes. That woman left because you have a child, but don't you see? That's exactly why you're perfect. You have the one thing I can't buy and I can't build. You have a child who needs a mother, and I have a ridiculous amount of love with nowhere to put it." It was insane. It was a Hallmark movie script gone wrong, but as we sat there talking, The transaction part of it started to fade. We talked for 3 hours. I told her about Sarah, about the grief that comes in waves, about how hard it is to braid hair with mechanics' fingers. She told me about the pressure of being a female CEO, about the emptiness of a penthouse apartment during the holidays. By the time the restaurant was closing, we had to plan a trial run, just to see if we could stand each other, just to see if Chloe liked her. That Saturday, I was a nervous wreck, pacing around my small living room, telling Chloe that Daddy's friend was coming over, trying to lower expectations. But when Elena walked in, she wasn't wearing the power suit. She was in jeans and a soft sweater, carrying a sketchbook and a set of professional charcoal pencils. She didn't try to hug Chloe, didn't force it. She just sat on the floor and started drawing. Chloe, who usually hides behind my leg with strangers, watched her for about 5 minutes, then slowly crept closer. "Is that a horse?" Chloe whispered. "It's trying to be." Elena smiled, "But I think I made the ears too long. Now it looks like a donkey. Can you help me fix it?" And just like that, the air in the room changed. I went to the kitchen to make coffee, watching them from the doorway, seeing this woman who commanded boardrooms letting my 8-year-old correct her shading technique. And for the first time in 6 years, the knot in my chest loosened just a fraction. Elena became a fixture in our lives over the next few months. Saturdays at the Science Museum, Tuesday night pizza dinners, helping with math homework, and somewhere in between the parent-teacher conferences and the late-night talks on my porch, the arrangement stopped being an arrangement. I found myself checking my phone for her texts, smiling when I smelled her perfume on my couch cushions. We were falling in love, backwards and messy, but it was real. But you know what they say, nothing good comes without a fight. One night in March, Elena looked pale, nervous. "My parents," she said, her voice tight, "it's their 40th anniversary dinner this weekend. I want you and Chloe to come. I want them to meet you." I knew this was the boss battle. I knew from the way she talked about the Sterlings that these were people who judged you by your zip code and your lineage. But I looked at Elena, looking so vulnerable, and I said yes. We drove up to their estate in Lake Forest, a place with a gate that looked like it belonged to Buckingham Palace, and Chloe pressed her face against the glass, whispering wow. But the moment we stepped inside, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Elena's mother, Joyce, was a woman who wore pearls like armor and looked at us like we were mud tracting on the carpet. Dinner was a torture chamber of 7 courses and silence. "So," Joyce said, dabbing her mouth with a linen napkin, "Victoria tells us you work in mid-level accounting?" She said accounting like I told her I sold stolen watches out of a trench coat. "Yes, ma'am," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It provides a stable life for my daughter." "Ah, yes." The child, her father, Richard, chimed in, looking at Chloe, who was struggling with the 3 different forks next to her plate. We were surprised to hear about the situation. Victoria always had such specific standards. "Dad," Elena warned, her hand gripping mine under the table. "I'm just being realistic, darling." Joyce smiled, a cold, thin expression. "You are the heir to a legacy. You have a global reputation, and you're playing house with a widower and his baggage. It's charming for a weekend, I suppose. But surely you don't intend to make this permanent. You need someone who brings something to the table, not someone who takes from it." The word baggage hung in the air, toxic and heavy. I saw Chloe freeze, putting her fork down, her lower lip trembling, because kids hear everything. They understand tone even when they don't know the words. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the antique floor. "That's enough, Marcus, please." Elena stood up too, looking panicked. "No," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "You can insult me all you want. I'm a grown man, I can take it. But you will not sit there and call my daughter baggage. She is the best thing that ever happened to this world. And if you can't see that, then you're the ones who are poor. Not us, Marcus. Sit down, we can fix this," Elena pleaded, grabbing my arm. "There's nothing to fix." "Elena," I said, pulling away, looking at her parents, then at her. "They're right about one thing, we don't fit here. I won't let my daughter be looked at like a mistake for the rest of her life." I grabbed Chloe's hand. "Come on, baby. We're leaving." "Marcus, stop." Elena shouted, running after us to the foyer, tears streaming down her face. "Don't do this. Don't let them win. I have to protect her, Elena." I yelled back, the hurt pouring out of me. "Look at them. They hate us. And they're your family. Every holiday, every birthday, it's going to be this judgment, coldness. I can't do that to Chloe. She lost her mom. She doesn't need to be rejected by a grandma too. But I love you." Elena screamed, "I love her." "It's not enough," I said, my heart breaking into a million pieces. "I'm sorry, Elena. We're done." I walked out that heavy oak door, buckled a crying Chloe into the car, and drove away, leaving the woman I loved standing in the driveway of a mansion that felt more like a tomb. I told myself I was being a good father. I told myself I was protecting my cub. But as I drove into the darkness, listening to Chloe sob in the back seat, I felt like the biggest coward on earth. The silence in our apartment for the next week was louder than any screaming match I've ever been in. You know that kind of quiet where the air feels thick, like you're walking through gelatin? That was us. I tried to go back to normal, making the chocolate chip pancakes, putting on cartoons, but Chloe wasn't having it. She moved through the house like a little ghost, refusing to draw, refusing to eat, just sitting by the window staring at the street like she was waiting for a car that wasn't coming. I told myself she'd get over it. Kids are resilient, right? That's the lie we tell ourselves to justify our mistakes. But on the fourth night, I found her in her room, ripping up her sketchbook. Not just any pages, but the ones Elena had drawn with her. She was tearing them into tiny confetti strips, crying these silent, hiccuping sobs that tore my guts out. "Chloe, honey, stop," I said, rushing in to grab her hands. "Don't destroy your art." She yanked her hands away, looking at me with a fury I didn't know an 8-year-old could possess. "It's not art. It's garbage. Just like us." I recoiled like she'd slapped me. "What? Who told you that?" "The mean lady," she screamed. "Elena's mom. She said we're baggage. She said we don't belong. And you agreed with her." "No, baby, no." I dropped to my knees, trying to hold her. I didn't agree. I was defending us. I took us away so she couldn't hurt us anymore. "You took us away from Elena," Chloe shouted, pushing me back. "You didn't ask me. You just decided. Elena loved me. She didn't care about the mean lady. She chose us. And you ran away because you were scared." She stood there, chest heaving, tears dripping off her chin. "Mommy died and she couldn't help it. But Elena is alive and you made her go away. You're the mean one, Dad. You." She slammed her bedroom door, and I sat there in the hallway, staring at the wood grain, feeling the truth of her words wash over me like ice water. She was right. I hadn't been protecting Chloe. I had been protecting my own ego. I was scared of the fight. I was scared of never measuring up to the sterling legacy. Elena had been willing to stand in the fire with us, and I had left her to burn alone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up looking at a picture of Sarah, asking her what to do. And I swear I could hear her laughing at me, telling me to stop being an idiot and go get the girl. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I put on my best suit, the one I wore to interviews and funerals, and I walked into Chloe's room. "Get dressed," I said. "Put on your favorite dress. We have a meeting." "With who?" She mumbled, eyes puffy. "With the future," I said. "If you're willing to forgive a stupid old dad." We drove to downtown Chicago, to the glass skyscraper that housed Sterling Tech. I didn't have an appointment. The receptionist looked at me like I was a delivery driver lost on the way to the loading dock. "Ms. Sterling is in a board meeting," she sniffed. "She cannot be disturbed. Tell her it's her husband," I said, my voice loud and clear. "Well, her future husband. And her daughter." The receptionist blinked, her mouth opening and closing like a fish, but before she could call security, the double doors behind her opened and Elena walked out, flanked by lawyers, looking tired and gray, like all the color had been drained from her world. She stopped dead when she saw us standing near me with a bouquet of grocery store flowers, and Chloe holding a taped-together drawing. "Marcus," she whispered. I didn't care about the lawyers. I didn't care about the receptionist. I walked right up to her, taking her hands. "I was a coward," I said, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. I let your parents' small-mindedness dictate my life. I let my insecurity drive the getaway car. But Chloe told me something last night. She said you chose us. And I'm here to tell you that we choose you back. Every day. Forever. If you'll still have us. Elena looked at me, then down at Chloe, who was holding up the tape drawing. It was the donkey horse they had drawn together. I fixed it, Chloe said. We can fix things. Elena made a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and dropped to her knees right there on the marble floor, hugging Chloe so hard I thought she might pop. I thought I lost you, she cried. I thought I lost my family. Not a chance, I said, pulling them both into a hug. But we have one more stop to make. We do. Elena wiped her eyes, looking up at me. Your parents, I said. We're not running from them. We're going to face them, together, and we're going to give them a choice. We drove back to the estate that afternoon. We didn't call ahead. We just showed up. When Joyce and Richard opened the door, they looked like they'd seen a ghost. Elena, Joyce said, clutching her pearls. What is the meaning of this? The meaning, Elena said, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it, stepping forward to stand beside me, holding my hand tight, is that I am getting married. I am becoming a mother to this beautiful girl, and I am going to be happy. She looked her mother dead in the eye. Now, here is how this works. You have a choice. You can invite us in, treat Marcus with respect, and get to know your granddaughter. Or you can close this door, and you will never, ever see me again. I will change my name. I will block your numbers. And I will erase myself from this legacy you care so much about. Because my legacy is standing right here holding my hand. The silence stretched for an eternity. I saw Richard look at Joyce. I saw the fear in their eyes, the realization that their money couldn't buy their daughter back. They looked at Chloe, who was standing tall, staring them down with that fierce defiance she got from me. Joyce let out a long, shaky breath. Her posture slumped, just a little. Well, she said, her voice cracking. It's cold outside. You better come in. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a hug. But it was a surrender. We went to the backyard, down to the private pond they had. It was awkward at first, stiff. But then Chloe, being the bridge builder she is, pulled a bag of stale bread out of her pocket that we'd brought. She walked right up to Joyce, who looked terrified of getting crumbs on her Chanel coat. That one is Duke. Chloe pointed to a fat mallard. He's the boss. You have to feed him first or he gets mean. Kind of like you. I choked on a laugh. Elena bit her lip. Joyce looked down at this little girl who had just insulted her and offered her bread in the same breath. And for the first time, a real, genuine smile cracked her frozen face. Duke, she repeated. Well, I suppose Duke needs his lunch. She took the bread. And for the next hour, I watched a billionaire heiress and a plumber's daughter feed ducks, laughing as the birds fought over crusts. Richard even asked me about the accounting firm I worked for. And when I told him I actually wanted to start my own firm one day, he didn't scoff. He gave me a card for a contact he had. It wasn't perfect. We didn't sing Kumbaya, but the ice broke. 6 months later, we were in my living room. Well, our living room now, since we bought a new place together. It was Christmas again. The tree was lit. Elena was on the floor helping Chloe with a Lego set. Hey, Elena said, looking up at me. I have a question. Yeah, I asked, putting down my mug of cocoa. She crawled over to me, reached into her pocket, and pulled out a simple gold band. You never answered me properly, she grinned, tears in her eyes. That night at the restaurant, I asked you a question. You did. I smiled, my heart feeling like it was going to burst. So, she whispered, are you busy for the next 40 years? Can you be my husband? I don't know, I teased, kissing her forehead. I come with a lot of baggage. I love your baggage, she said. It's my favorite luggage. Then yes, I said. Yes, I can be your husband. Chloe cheered from the Lego pile, throwing a handful of bricks in the air like confetti. We got married a month later. Small ceremony, just us and a few friends, and yes, even Joyce and Richard, who sat in the front row and actually cried happy tears, I think. So, look, here's the truth I learned. We spend so much time thinking we have to fit into these perfect little boxes: the nuclear family, the biological connection,